We have Dr. Gemma Moya-Galé with us. She is an assistant professor of communication science and disorders at Teachers College, Columbia University. Her primary interests focus on the development of novel treatment approaches using automatic speech recognition to improve communication and quality of life in individuals with Parkinson's disease. Additionally, her clinical research aims at the inclusion and empowerment of underrepresented populations with Parkinson's disease, such as the Hispanic, Latinx, Latine, and her community outreach strives to maximize resources and services that are linguistically and culturally responsive to this population. And for those of you who are wondering if she's practicing what she's preaching, just know she's very active right now with our upcoming Washington Heights program. Been helping us planning that and everything. So we are extremely grateful for everything she does. And now she's here today. So I'm going to, without further ado, turn it over to Dr. Moya-Galé.
Thank you so much, Eden, for the wonderful introduction and for PMD Alliance for, again, just working with you, collaborating with you is fantastic. Thank you for everything you do. And for everybody, thank you for having me today. I work on all of those things, but today I wanted to share with you a project that is close to my heart because we just started it here at Teachers College, Columbia University, to see if it could spark some ideas and see whether we can move these projects sort of forward. So I will not take a lot of your time today, but it's just, please feel free to ask any questions as I go along. This is very informal. So what I wanted to share with you today is a cognitive linguistic group initiative that we have started at Teachers College. So I typically work a lot with people with Parkinson's and in terms of their speech and their voice and how to strengthen that. But I've been running a group called Speech for PD for 6 years. And part of that group has always been some cognitive linguistic exercise as well. But then we merge with, strong voice, more louder voice, that kind of thing. But we never fully tackle cognition and language on their own rights, right? So it was always embedded, which has worked really well. Part of my research actually is on how, certain problems that may come up because of the disease, like that are cognitive related, may actually impact social connections. And I wanted to explore this way further. So this is what I wanted to introduce to you. We recently found through, different focus groups that people with Parkinson's, one of the main complaints too is cognitive changes and language changes, to the point that, many of the people I work with, my collaborators, people with Parkinson's, they say, when I'm in the middle of conversation with different people, I know what I want to say, but the moment I go ahead and say it, the conversation has moved on, right? And how those situations actually may impact their sense of belonging, right? Their social connectedness, and also how those situations may increase their frustration. So we decided to, based on that interaction with them and what we had learned over the years, we decided to start this, what we call cognitive linguistic group at Teachers College. And this is an initiative we started this semester. It took us 8 weeks as a treatment program, right? We did this all in person just because we didn't want to lose that in-person connection with each other. So before the start of of the treatment program, we invited people for a thorough cognitive linguistic assessment in which we looked at all their language skills, because language is really sort of not paid so much attention so much compared to voice or speech in Parkinson's. We know up to 40% of people with Parkinson's disease actually suffer from what we call mild cognitive impairment. That is, problems with thinking of given words or planning for certain things, problem solving, different situations that do not play a major impact in daily life, but they do plays, a role in how day-to-day people with Parkinson's deal with, like everyday situations. So we assessed them before and after the program and conducted that treatment in person, 2 hours every Wednesday, together with our students. So at Teachers College, we train graduate students in our speech language pathology program to become speech language pathologists, right? So everything we do is always paired with the priceless work our students just carry forward with us. And together with me, I had my wonderful supervisors, Jordan Wills and Bernadine Gagnon, who is the director of our Edward D. Misek Clinic for Communication Disorders. So what we did is every single day we had some sort of special topic. The topics that were covered throughout those 8 weeks of working together in person in very small groups. So we had only 5 people with Parkinson's engaged in this program. We wanted to keep it small because working on language and certain cognitive aspects, we didn't think it would be suitable for large groups. So we wanted to keep it small, but this was just a pilot program, right? We want to expand it and we want to make it bigger. But for now, this was a really successful program that we will be replicating now over different semesters. The first thing, for instance, that we worked on was on that common complaint of many people we've been working with, which is I cannot think of given words. So everything was done through different strategies, for instance, on word retrieval. We also worked on different memory strategies or different strategies for planning ahead. We live in New York City, so moving also around the city, things that were very functional to every single member of our group. So although this was always done in a group format, we worked on different strategies that spoke to the needs of everybody. So for instance, using Google Maps to get from point A to point B, right? Or just trying to troubleshoot some common situations like maybe missing a doctor's appointment and then or just sharing with the group. So what's the problem? How would you try to fix it? Because many times the problem would be just saying exactly how something would be resolved, right? Or working on visual spatial skills was also something that was part of our group. So just to give you an idea of different things that were done, I have a visual that I think could help. And again, this is part of materials our wonderful students created, but I think it can give a nice idea of this initiative. So there's a lot on the slide. This is kind of a summary of things that were done. But for instance, we focused a lot of our time during these like 2-hour sessions on getting words out to really say the things that we wanted to say. And we have different strategies. This is all from the speech pathology field, right? But we did it in a systematic and engaging way to sort of provide strategies for speakers with Parkinson's. One of them we call semantic feature analysis. When someone, and we can all use this, like it's how to paraphrase, right? When we're stuck in a certain word and we cannot really think of exactly what word we want to say, we can actually talk around that word and we can refer to it as, we can think of its properties, right? Or where we can find it, its location. We can make an association maybe with a different word just to strengthen that network. So these are different strategies that our participants put into action, right, with different materials that our students would create. We also used a different approach, which really taps into kind of expanding the number of words someone is going to be thinking in a given moment, right? And we call that verb network strengthening program. And that you have just an example here where we really focus on a given verb, and out of that verb we really try to get as many like subjects that would go with that verb, as many objects that would go with that verb. But just think of something to sort of expand the that access to vocabulary that sometimes it gets stuck, right, during conversation. So, and these are all strategies to concerns that were reported by the patients that we saw, right? Oops, sorry, here. Another of the strategies, another week when we talked about problem solving. So what is a good way to kind of tackle that skill, right? And again, this may or may not be necessary always, but as I said, up to 40% of people with Parkinson's do report some changes in their cognitive linguistic skills. So these were all strategies that our participants who, also had, some of them had mild cognitive impairment, some of them didn't, but they already started sharing with us some of these difficulties, right? Like, oh, I cannot really think of a given word when I'm speaking. I notice this has changed. I know this is not how it used to be, right? So even if they, formally speaking, did not have a mild cognitive impairment, they still wanted to be part of the group. When we interviewed them later, they all said they found the group really useful because of the strategies. And remember, it's a group format. So in groups, I love them because everybody has their different personalities, but everybody's going to have different needs as well. So some techniques may speak to you more than others, and that is okay. And this is just a sample of things that we did, but definitely things that we want to expand and move forward. So we also use, for example, another strategy called swaps. So we say, okay, stop. Let's assess the problem, and that could be any given problem in any given situation. What are the different alternatives of things that we could do to address this problem? What's the plan we want to tackle? And are we satisfied with that action, right? With that outcome? In order to also problem solve, we also talked about the goal, plan, do strategy, right? Which is simply to set up our goal, plan for that goal, do it, getting into action, and then review and again ask ourselves, are we satisfied with this outcome? And if not, what can we try next time, right? Another example that I wanted to show you is something like this, right? So we would be showing in our group, we use lots of visuals, lots of materials, and our students also created a home practice program so that our participants always had handouts, always had resources to take away with them and bring back the next day. So we found that this really helped everybody stay like on top of what they had to do. And also it was just easier then to share week to week their progress. And, these are just a couple examples, but we did, every week was a special, it was presented as a PowerPoint format because we did this in the clinical setting, right? But every day, every session, we had a different deck of PowerPoint slides. Our students would prepare a home practice program. And during the weeks when the clinic was closed, for example, for spring break, we would still have them do different exercises and then report back. And everybody was really, really invested in coming to our sessions and sharing how everything had gone, the good and the bad, the successes and the challenges. And what struck me the most and kind of got me excited to keep going is that even for those, as I said before, even for those who, because as I said, we assess everybody and we screen everybody. And because it was a pilot, we just wanted to see whether this could be accepted by the community and people would get excited to engage in programs like this. So even those who actually screened fine, meaning they did not show any mild cognitive impairment, but still they did say, I noticed this is happening and I noticed these changes in my language. I want to work on those. We accepted those people. We wanted to try to give them those strategies. And the fact that they report changes and that they say, we are actually, I thought this was so easy. But then when I put it into practice, I thought, wait a minute, I have to think about it. I have to, the strategies are indeed useful. That got us thinking into now running, for instance, maintenance groups for those who graduate, right, after 8 weeks. And then what? Well, we want them to keep practicing, right? We know language is something that changes over time in Parkinson's, and cognitive abilities do change as well. So just 8 weeks is not going to change the whole thing, right? So we are interested in also formulating maintenance groups, and keep providing those groups every single semester in little, sizes, like 5, 6 people at a time. But based on this experience and these results, we really want to encourage groups like this across the board. If possible in person, but online. I've been doing it also for 6 years, and I love online. We can reach so many people. It's so accessible. We actually also had a social component to our in-person groups. We would provide snacks and coffee and some, and opportunities for meaningful interactions, not just to discuss strategies and exercises, right? And our participants, our students, us as supervisors really also loved those priceless moments for social interactions with the community. So I'm reading some of the questions. We use the MoCA, Sheila, for the screening tool, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And that is, that is a very sensitive tool to detect mild cognitive impairment. So many of our participants, as I said, they were fine, but I was very interested in their own perceptions of the problem. So the question to them was, have you noticed any changes in your language, or in your cognition, meaning in the way you problem solve, in the way you look at a given problem and then you try to find a solution? If the answer to that question was yes, then we had a deeper conversation. And those strategies, as I said, it's in a group format. Some of them are going to speak more to some versus others, right? At least in these first 8 weeks that we did this, all those strategies were very well received. And we placed a strong emphasis on building community and on social interactions. That's very important for the research that I do on social connectedness. So I try to always foster that in clinical practice. Kelly, it's not available via Zoom yet, but we will. We wanted to try the in-person because I really miss the in-person interactions, As I said, I've been doing speech for PD for 6 years, and it's been online, which I love. But we always try to do an in-person component at the end of the semester to celebrate togetherness. I call it like that. I can totally see this happening also over Zoom, just because I think there's a big need for programs like this. If you look at the literature, there's way more on voice and speech changes in Parkinson's within my fields, right? Within speech language pathology. There's not so much on cognitive or language changes. So I do feel this is very amenable to Zoom as well. It's just that we decided to go for in-person just to also tackle the social aspect a little bit more directly. But yeah, the structure for now, we're going to keep it in person. Dave says, I think it's hard to build community over Zoom. And you know what? I'm going to semi-agree here, just because, and hear me out, Dave, because so for the cognitive linguistic, we're sticking to the in-person component first, but speech for PD, well, it happened over Zoom because of the pandemic, right? We all just had to transition to tele platforms. And then we surveyed our participants. Do you want to come in person? Do you want to stay online? 90% or more for accessibility issues, they wanted to be remote. And then I've done some research based on that because of the importance of community. And I have to say, because of the way we structure the groups and the way we really emphasize the importance of community building, I do feel we've sort of found a good formula for that. for community building through online platforms, which seems a little bit cold, right? But no, like the key thing is that, for instance, this is something that we also did for the cognitive linguistic, but that was in person, so it may be easier. But we always, for speech for PD, we always start our sessions with one question that taps into getting to know each other a little bit more deeply, right? So I don't know, like recently we asked something like, what is a favorite childhood memory that you have, right? Or what is the best piece of advice you ever received, or something like that. But we tap into very personal topics, and every session the question changes, right? But we spend 15 minutes of it, it's an hour and 15 minutes, so we do lots of things, but we spend 15 minutes really getting to know each other. Like, we take it seriously. It's at the core of the program. And that's what people take away. So the last day we asked them, what's the thing that you found was most beneficial to you? Like, give it to us straight, right? Like, we want to know. We have always implemented your feedback. That's how we keep growing. And now we have over 30 people joining every single session, like we've grown so much. And to the answer of, what's your feedback, many of them actually use the phrase community building. There's something about the group that makes me feel part of, that community. And to me, that was essential. So I agree that Zoom, of course, makes things a little bit colder, but it's also how we make how we build community online, that also may make a difference. Of course, this is not to say, I don't think it's going to replace in person, right? But I wouldn't say no to Zoom if that can open access to more people. So, but everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different. Yeah. I'm trying to also read the questions here.
There is a question about what was the age range of the participants, and do you
Oh,
have
yeah.
plans for future sessions to create groups by PD stages or symptoms?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. So for these participants, they were in their late 60s, early 70s. I think the mean age was actually 70. We had only 5 in person. Yes, the idea is to well, I would say there's no requirement in terms of age, right? It's like we really take anybody who has that concern that they want to work on their language and their cognition. In terms of stages, we right now are exploring those who present with mild cognitive impairment, or those who, in terms of screening, they pass the screening, but they notice something is different. And I place a lot of value in someone telling us, I've noticed a change. Sometimes that means passing a screening. But if someone tells me they've noticed a change, I want to know what's going on. So, and we're interested in developing strategies for that specific group. So right now at Teachers College, the idea is to keep working with people who do present formally with mild cognitive impairment, but also with a group who may actually pass the screening, but they have started noticing subtle changes. So we're going to have like 2 groups most likely in the future. And hopefully, we can also increase that to other subgroups in the future. But because this is so recent, I think this is how we're going to be structuring it. You can, for written information, we're also building more information. Right now, we only have flyers that I'm happy to share, but there's my email, Kelly wrote on the chat. So if you want to refer, or you want more information, you want to chat, I'm always very happy to do so. There's my email. If you have suggestions, I'm very strong on collaborations and hearing from, clinicians, patients, anybody, because the idea is to serve our community. Everything we've done is free. So there's no charge at all for any services that we provide. So yeah, the idea is to really expand our services, expand our groups. We also want to expand this to other communities like Spanish speaking communities. That's very important to me in my work as well. So that's the idea. Karen, I see your hand up.
Hi, I took a lot of the writing and reading classes at TC when I worked in New York City. Are you going to try to implement the same type of program, like sending trainers out to speech pathologists to train them in this philosophy?
We have not thought about that yet. I think we're right now training the students to go out into the fields, and once they have their license, start implementing groups that are similar. So, and then we are starting to basically show our results. And with Clemmy, we have talked about this, showing conferences, the how-to we're doing this, so that other trainers, other clinicians can actually go ahead and do it and do the same in their own communities. So we don't have a formalized program for that, but that's where we're going. Bernard, hello. I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I have two comments. The first is we've implemented something like this as part of our guidelines for all of our summit meetings and for all of our sessions, where we acknowledge the fact that some people may struggle with words, and we ask all the participants to be patient if we notice somebody struggling to get their comments out. So we found that to be an effective way of making it okay for people who may be struggling. Instead of having them drop out or go away, we make it okay in our space. And so I'm saying that because this is a group of support group leaders, we make sure that we, make this a part of our sort of rules of the road. It's just like raise your hand in a Zoom session. We also have, if a person is struggling, pause, give them that extra moment or two. So what I would be helpful to us is also if you had like a one-page set of guidelines of things that you've learned that we can then pass along in other environments, not necessarily speech pathologists, but in the way we conduct meetings for Parkinson's that involve the Parkinson's community.
I love that, Bernard. Thank you so much. And I love that you are referring to the other person in the conversation, right? Not the speaker with PD, but the listener.
Right.
And that is like an essential component, I feel. So yeah, like this has been focused on like strategies that speakers, right, individuals with Parkinson's can implement. But for sure, part of that conversation is knowing like how to give space and how to be patient as a listener. So we have not developed the guidelines yet, but we will, and we'll be happy to share based on our observations and learnings of this. But thank you, Bernard. I agree with you. I love that you also focus on listener strategies. Hi, Dave. You're muted, Dave.
Can you bring this program to other colleges so that we can duplicate it? So I have a good university here that could probably get involved in the community and start to replicate the process and get the community engaged.
Where's your university, Dave?
Lehigh University, and we've got the sales college that's involved in doing PT and work with Parkinson's.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so moving forward, we are going to start. So we've submitted this to our national conference, which happens in November, and this is like people from all over the states come, and it's a wonderful opportunity to network. We want to bring this out, to other universities and collaborate 100%. So that's going to be our first official, I think, approach to communicating what we've done, sharing our guidelines on how to bring it along, how to replicate it in different universities. That's going to happen officially in November. And that's also going to allow us to, or give us the time to, provide written guidelines, hopefully build more resources, so that other programs can also implement it. Oh, and also, yes, World Parkinson's Congress next year. So I was like, well, before next year, in November, we are starting to share it in DC. That's where the national is the American Speech Language Pathology, right? American Speech Language Hearing Association, ASHA, is going to happen, and that's hopefully where we will be disclosing and sharing and collaborating with other speech language pathologists. But absolutely, I cannot wait for World Parkinson's Congress to actually, have more discussions like this, keep building resources, sharing resources. As I said, everything we do, everything we create is free. Like, what we want is collaborate and share what we have, and see if people are interested in, doing something similar, collaborate. So thank you for giving me this platform. It's the first step into doing so. Corey, I see I hope I pronounce your name right, but I see your hand is up.
Yes, I just got to unmute. I'm an occupational therapist, and a lot of what you talked about is similar to what we do as OTs, and I do a monthly support group. It's in person, and I happen to do it with a speech pathologist, and I work with the care partners, and she works with the people with Parkinson's, but I'm trying to bring more services to where I live in Western Mass. And I'd love to collaborate with you. And I was also wondering if I could use those 3 strategies that you showed. I hopped on a little bit late.
Oh, yes.
I would love to bring those strategies and develop more of a program here in Western Mass.
Yes, 100%. I was just now writing down your email. I saw your message on the chat.
Thank
So
you.
I'll contact you, Corey, and absolutely, I'm happy to share, examples of what we've done, and we can take it from there. But that's so exciting.
Oh, good. Do you want my phone number too?
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
yeah, you can put it in the chat if you want.
Okay.
And I'll write it down.
Okay, great.
But I already got your email. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, in respect to Dr. Moya-Galé's time, I'm going to thank her profusely. She obviously had a lot of stuff to share today. We're going to go ahead and break into your groups right now. We're going to meet for about almost 40 minutes. Probably we'll come back around 10 after. And the topic, I'm going to say it's going to be kind of an open topic, but I do hope you discuss what Dr. Moya-Galé shared with us. And thank you again. We're going to do a quick PMD wave of gratitude for her. And then you don't need to do anything, but Kelly's going to put you into breakout rooms. We'll see you guys in about 10 after.
Thank you, everybody.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had some good conversations. I'm going to go ahead and ask room 1. We have Barb, we have Carl, we've got Deborah, we've got DS, we've got Judy, we've got Karen Williams, and we've got Randy, who'd like to come off mute and share what you guys talked about.
We were just panicking in the last 6 seconds how we were going to share everything we talked about, and then we get called on first. We had a good conversation, and we did stay on topic, I believe. Remembering things and finding things to help you remember, keeping lists, things like that. I don't know. Anybody else want to throw something in, Randy, or? I'm trying to pass it on to somebody, but yeah, I'm trying to remember what we talked about.
Well, I do remember the nurse practitioner I used to work with. I'll never forget this because I found it helpful. She said to me, if you walk into a room and forget why you walked into the room, that's normal aging. But if you're trying to cook in the bathroom, that's a problem. Or if
Right.
you forget where you put the car keys, that's normal aging. But if you forget how to drive the car, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think one of the things was I was trying to tell them how great it was to live here and that we had these great research centers, and then I couldn't remember the name of one of them.
Until what, about 8 minutes later?
They were talking about something else, and I'm like, oh, Barrows. So yeah, that was a perfect example.
I put a
But
link
no.
in the video in the chat for a video that was at the World Parkinson's Congress in Kyoto about some Mr. Young takes a cognitive test. It was one of the 3-minute videos that were by the people who came to there you go, I forgot a word. But, okay, by the participants. But it's very, very funny. So if anybody, it's in the chat. I don't know if you can see it. But
Maybe Eden could, if you send us follow-up, maybe you could include that link in there. I think we all.
I don't see that link because that was in your specific break room chat.
okay, so I'm gonna put it in right now.
Yes,
It is extremely funny. I mean, it's 2.5 minutes of laughter. It's really good.
I think we talked also about, I think two of us are like in our 80s and we're running support groups. So we're desperately hoping someone else will be, brave enough to take over at some point. So I think that was interesting how that works out.
There's something we said for brewing people, for looking for talent and getting those people involved in a small way. And I'd said that I recently had that conversation with the person who might well become my successor. I can probably can do what I do for several more years, but eventually somebody else is going to be taken over, and I will give him a gift because I now have email addresses, phone numbers for probably 70 different people that would use as speakers and contacts and things like that. So it will make that person's life ever so much easier in the future. But we'll all need to be replaced someday. And I was part of a group in upstate New York for a long time. I took it over after my father died, and eventually it died for lack of leadership. And I think at some point, whoever's leading a group needs to say, I need help. If for this group to continue, I need help, and this is what I need help with. And sometimes it's hard to ask for help.
Yep.
Anything else from group 1? Anybody have anything they'd like to contribute before I move on to group 2? Well, thank you for sharing group 1. Group 2, we have Dave Orlowski, Dave Rivera. We've got Devin, we've got Karen Malkin, we've got Bernard, and we've got Sheila. Who'd like to come off mute? I know this is not a quiet group. Don't make me call on you.
We talked about building community. We talked about how
I
to
knew
engage.
Dave would talk with Bernard.
There you
I
go.
waited long enough.
A lot of good suggestions how to get people to engage, how to get people to disengage when they talk too long, and how to get the group moving along. The conversation, getting the group to own the group, not the support group leader.
I hear someone talking, but it's quiet.
Bernard.
No, that's not me talking. I
Okay.
talk too much.
Are you home now, Bernard, or are you still with your family?
No, I'm still in Virginia.
Okay.
I leave on Wednesday.
Gotcha. Anything else? Group 2.
Well, we also talked about techniques for how to get others engaged, and I'm actually trying to demonstrate that.
Well,
Yes.
sometimes that works because people don't like silence, so they jump in to fill it.
Yes.
And then,
Bernard and I had our
Not
Karen-
working.
Oh no, it worked. Dave jumped up. He took the bait.
I'm looking for Karen to say something.
Well, I do also appreciate again what Bernard had said earlier because yes, the speaker is important, but so are the listeners. Because sometimes you can almost tell in a support group someone's just waiting to speak again. That they're not really listening, they're kind of just like waiting to put in their 2 cents again. And that's not something you want. You really do want that active listening as well. And then Karen, what were you going to say? You were going to come off mute.
I like to just observe sometimes.
Well, thank you, group 2. What about group 3? I guess you guys chased everyone away because I bet you had a big group and now it's just Greg and Lauren left. Who wants to come off mute? There you
I'll
go.
come off mute.
Go, Greg.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the speaker and what she asked us to do. I think we talked more about some of the newer research coming out, newer things. There's DB, if you had DBS anytime prior in the past, say 2 years, you have continuous DBS, then there's adaptive DBS, now there's DBS Plus. There's a new firm coming into America with theirs is called Alpha DBS. And then we also talked about some other, I was just at a Parkinson's event over the weekend speaking, and we had several doctors talking about this new wireless nano system, which uses light activated gold nanoparticles to treat Parkinson's by restoring damaged neurons. And it breaks up, theoretically, the point of this stuff is that it breaks up Lewy bodies.
Interesting.
So we were talking about this program, and I mentioned that we had 6 speakers in a day, and I mentioned how silly that is to people with Parkinson's can't listen to 6 different people during the course of the day. So I was going last, and I was supposed to do a thing on charge up the troops, but instead I switched it up and we played Parkinson's Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And everybody had a gas, and I had fly swatters for buzzers because I had to make up stuff. I didn't have anything with me, but just made up 5 different categories, and we had a team of doctors, caregivers, support group leaders, medical community people, vendors that would have at the table. And so we played Jeopardy, and they got beads if they got it right, and we had to take their beads away from them if they got it wrong. And I think that I think it was Lauren who wanted to know which team did the best, and it was the caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
The doctors did the worst.
Wow.
I think that's relatively true. Doctors tend to be geniuses in one narrow realm of what they do. So we talked about a wide variety of things like that. By the way, if anyone's interested, the new company coming from Europe to America is called Neuronica. That's Nevronika. And they have, in Europe, you get a CE mark. Here you would get FDA approval. They have a CE mark for their version of It's their version of adaptive DBS.
Thanks for sharing. Lauren, is there anything you want to add?
The other thing we talked about, a little bit more in line with what the speaker was talking about, we talked about how there's a need for those programs that are working on cognition and language instead of just speech. But we talked about improv and how that can help with the same thing. Robert Cochran's program, Shabir was talking about the tightrope theater, which he said is virtual and it's free. And how some of those improv exercises or activities can help with the same type thing, helping with cognition and language, spontaneous storytelling, things like that.
You guys had a lot of good conversations today. I'm glad to hear it. Judy's debating herself. How have any of you noticed, though, because I will say, do you find it frustrating when you are talking and you do have some of the mild cognitive impairment where you're like, I can't think of a word, and that just kind of drives you nuts? I'm seeing nodding. Anybody want to come off mute and share for a minute?
I would answer that question, but I forgot what I was going to say.
It's tough when you almost like question yourself, when you're like, I know something and I can't think of it. Or the word is, like my family jokes with me because I'm like, what? And they're like, use your words like I'm a child. And it's just kind of like, stop it.
And every person with Parkinson's right now is going, yes, Eden does it too.
I think I was
Parkinson's or something else.
I was mentioning during the breakaway that I took that cognitive test for one of my studies a couple of weeks ago, and it's an online one where I have the paper here and then I have to hold it up and show her what I did, and I did everything right except the box. I messed up on the box, and I never mess up on the box, so that kind of like, oh no. So now I'm like, I got to practice that before I do the next time. So yeah, even something like that is kind of scares you a little. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a stigma in America that if you're not a fluent speaker and you're a wordsmith, you make up stuff and stuff flows out of your mouth, then you're perceived to be stupid.
Hey, I
look at
resemble that remark.
Yeah, I resemble that remark all the time. But look at our political system. If you just slow down and think before you respond, you're considered to be a dope. But if you have a quick, snappy response, even though you didn't answer the question, oh, he's sharp. And I think that's a major stigma in America.
I would love to comment, but I promised myself I wouldn't.
I can't believe you're refraining.
Yeah. No, after I said it.
I just have to remember that our commander-in-chief passed the cognitive test.
That's
all I'm going to say.
It was very difficult.
Hey, you can be president.
I do think, though, you're right, though. There is a stigma, like any type of with your mood. Like that's another thing with the Parkinson's, like any anxiety or depression that might come with it, or when you're having trouble thinking. And I always joke, I'm like, it's not the D word, dementia, but as we age, there is that cognitive impairment. Like we know we're not as swift as we once were, and that's very hard to deal with.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I think it's partly because we're this all or nothing. So if you're not sharp in one way, regardless of whether it's physical or mental, people project that to be all of you. We've got to get better at distinguishing. Because, for example, we have great geniuses who've been great inventors and things, or great scientists, and they're so messed up, maybe socially or something else on the other part of them. I mean, this, I don't know where we drifted into this idea of all or nothing, you know? Because I know I sat next to, in many of my classes, some people I kept asking myself, how did they get in here? Hey, what are they doing in this classroom? And then you find out, you know, they were 4.0 students in school, and they, you know, world class, maybe a musician and something or whatever. But boy, sitting, and the only place there's an exception to that is the math class. We all seem to agree that everybody can't do math, but the rest of it, I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing.
I spent most of my career working with aerospace engineers. And I think one of the first programs I was on was the Apollo program. And I remember one of the engineers, back in those days, we had typewriters and stuff. And they would have to write everything out, and I'd have to type it for them. We had one guy, and I would sit there, and it would amaze me that he knew grammar at all. And I'm thinking, this guy has got a PhD, and I can write a better report than he can, you know? Yeah, so it was just amazing to me how stupid some of them were in different areas, almost like idiot savant type thing. They're brilliant about math, but they can't, you know, balance a checkbook, for example. So, yeah.
I recommend a book that I'm reading. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. It's called Rebel with a Clause. Ellen Joven. And this is a lady who set up grammar tables all across the United States to answer people's questions on punctuation and grammar and spelling.
A comma. That's my favorite.
Oxford comma. I had never heard of an Oxford comma. I had always surmised that spaghetti was a plural, but I never knew what the singular of spaghetti is. It's spaghetto. I mean, the things that you learn. But I had grammar drilled into my brain when I was in high school. So when I heard a newscaster talk about the number of popes who had lied in space in the St. Peter's Basilica, I went crazy. Laid in place. Lay and lie. You know, it's a very good Rebel with a Clause.
I'm going to look for that.
Very good. And a documentary has been made about it. I don't know how widely available it is, but I'd love to see the documentary. It's very good. It's funny.
Yeah, I could talk grammar stuff all day long.
I actually am a big fan of the Oxford comma, so I do use it.
I am too. How many of you use an Oxford comma?
That came from Oxford?
Terminal comma in a list before the and?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how many of you put
I have White and Sistrunk still on my bookshelf.
I remember the legal argument about that. You know, if the comma's not there, it's like two people sharing something instead of each one getting part of it.
It can be confusing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at the Second Amendment. That's another one to look at the comma for.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment's interesting to read grammatically and not politically.
Mm-hmm.
And ask yourself how you would decipher what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I translate the alphabet from Spanish to English. Don't ask me where to put the comma.
Well, I thank everyone for being here today. Next month, we're actually going to be talking about, we're going back to our usual format. We're going to be discussing compassion fatigue, because it's a real thing. And we're going to discuss it. And I think it's something that as support group leaders are going to relate a lot to. So I look forward to seeing everybody, hopefully before next month, but if not, next month on June 2nd, it looks like. Have a great day, everybody.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, guys, thanks.